and welcome to the channel. My name's Mark and this is my 1961 Morris Minor Traveller. The last couple of videos have been service interval ones, the 3,000 mile and 6,000 mile. This one is going to be the 12,000 mile and 12 month service. So I'm starting the video by taking the car out for a little drive. Just want to get the engine warm, or more specifically, I want to get the oil warm as well, because I'm going to be doing an oil change, which is much easier if the oil is warm. It makes it just a little runnier. And then when you come to drain it, it will flow out that little bit easier as well. But before we start this service, we need to have completed the 3,000 mile service interval items and also the 6,000 mile. If you've not seen those videos, I'll try and put a link up here somewhere. So the car jacked up and suitably propped up with axle stands or whatever it is you use. It needs a good receptacle underneath, and then we can start draining the oil. Now we're looking at this plug here at the back of the sump, which is a 3/4 socket. Okay, so that's loose. It'll probably come out quite fast to start with, and obviously you want to try not to lose that in the pot of oil. And there we go. Before fitting the plug, I'm going to fit a new copper washer just to try and reduce the risk of leaks. So once we've drained the oil and refitted the plug, we can move on to replacing our oil filter, which is on the same side as the plug and just up here. Onto that, I'm going to use a 9/16 socket. Now, if I remember rightly, this has lots of components inside it. So this is a shaft that goes up to the connector at the top. I think there's a couple of plates and a spring and some washers as well. So obviously you've got to be careful not to drop that into your bowl of oil. Now, as you're doing this, oil is going to leak and go all over your hands, so definitely wear gloves for this one. So there's the shaft that comes out, and it's got a rubber O-ring on it as well. I'm just going to pop that behind me and just let most of it drain out from this bowl. Can't believe I did that without spilling anything or covering myself. So once most of the oil has drained into your bowl or whatever it is you've got under the car, I actually found it quite handy to have a plastic container. Obviously there's still a lot of old oil on there, in the filter, inside the bowl and on the shaft as well. So it just means you can put everything in there, it can drain off safely, and then you can clean this out later on, but it means you don't lose any of the parts in the deep oil. In the replacement kit, I have got a new washer, which I will show you in a sec, and the paper filter, which obviously is a replacement for that one. And that's it. So once you've got the cover off, it's always good just to get up there and give it a good clean. Now the rubber ring that I showed you coming in the new kit actually sits up in a lip around here. Do need to make sure you get the old one out, because if you put the new one in without taking the old one out, chances are that you won't get a good seal. And there it is, finally out. So I found a pair of circlip pliers, really handy to remove that rubber ring. So once you've cleaned up all the components, you should be left with the bolt that runs through the middle with a rubber ring on it, the housing, a spring, a steel washer. Some of the diagrams show a felt washer as well, but I don't have that. Then a plate, and then of course our new filter. So after a bit more research last night, I found out that most of the oil filters do have a second washer. It's either rubber or it's felt, but it is important to stop oil running through that large disc. I'm going to replace my one with a rubber one for now, and then next time I will order a felt one, but why it's not included in the service kit, I'm not really sure. So to confirm, we start with our bolt. Our cylinder goes over the top of it. Our spring goes in first, then the metal washer, then the rubber or the felt washer. Mine's new, so it's just a little bit on the tight side. Then this plate goes up with the raised side upwards. Reason being, it sits in the gap of into the hole of the filter, and that all goes in, and then it can be offered up into the car. So next up, we've got to fit the rubber ring back into the housing. You'll probably get a couple of these in the packet, so you just got to decide which one is right for you. I'm going to go with the thin one here. And then of course, next up, we can offer up our filter assembly that we've just cleaned up and replaced the element into. I don't know if it's correct or not, but I tend to give the whole housing just a bit of a turn, just to make sure the rubber is seated. And then we can tighten up. The 1098 and 948cc engines both take 5.5 pints of oil, which is 3.1 litres. So once we've refilled with our oil, we just need to pop the distributor cap off and the rotor arm, and then turn the engine over just to allow the oil to work its way around the engine. And finally, we can check for leaks. So it is recommended annually to replace the plugs correctly gapped to 0.25 of an inch or 0.63 millimeters. So this is where I get controversial again. The plugs that are in my car, I know have got plenty of life left in them, so I'm choosing not to replace them. However, I do make sure that I keep a set of correctly gapped plugs, a rotor arm, a condenser, and a set of points, just in case. I've just bought and fitted some HT lead markers, so they're all numbered individually, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you pull all the leads off, you don't get them muddled up. They're a great idea, really chuffed with those. So moving on, but still under the bonnet, we need to remove our rocker cover and we need to check the gap in the tappets. Okay, to remove the cover, I'm using a 5/8 socket. So the tools we are going to need are a 3/16 Whitworth or quarter British Standard closed spanner, good size flat screwdriver, and then our feeler gauge set to 0.012 an inch or 0.3 millimeters. Under the cover we've got our rockers, tappets, of which there are 8 of them. There are 2 per cylinder, 1 inlet and 1 exhaust. So basically, as the inlet one opens, the fuel and air mixture goes in. As it closes, the spark happens, creates the explosion, and then the exhaust one then opens, and then the gases come out and disappear down your exhaust pipe. Now, just to make sure all of that's timed properly, there is a gap we need to just check underneath this section and on top of this spring section there. Now, there are 8 of these, and the way we work it out is using the number 9. So when we check rocker number 1, number 8 is going to be fully down, 2 and 7, 3 and 6, 4 and 5, etc, etc. So that's the way we work through it. So as I explained earlier, where number 8 is now down, I'm just going to pinch in the fan belt and use the fan itself to turn the engine, and that's fully compressed. So there should be a bit of movement there. And, oh, I've lost my, there it is. Look at that. It fits, it's a bit of a pinch, but that's number 1 gapped. And then you just keep rotating the engine, see which one goes down next. So we see this one and this one are going down. Number 2 probably slightly ahead, so that's at its lowest. So then I'm checking number 7. Maybe a little bit on the tight side, that one. Might give that one a little bit of adjustment. So to do that, we break open the retaining nut or locking nut, and then the adjustment is actually made on the screwdriver. So I want the tiniest of gap to increase, so I'm going to just loosen that screw ever so slightly, tighten it back up, and then check again. Lovely. So roughly the order you'll be doing them in is 1, 7, 4, 6, 8, 2, 5, and then 3, depending on where you start. But before we put it back together again, we'll put the cover back on. We need to change the cork gasket that goes around there. Clean up all the way around because there's bound to be some oil around it. If any of the gasket itself remains, make sure that you clear that up completely. Okay, so we can pop our new gasket in place. And then our cover goes back on. So just make sure the gasket is lined up with the cover okay. And pinch that down nice and tight. And we're done. So don't forget to refit the breather hose if you've got one. The owner's manual suggests that there is a way of lubricating the water pump around about here. Mine doesn't have it, but it's worth checking your own. Replacing the air filter on these is really straightforward. Obviously, we've got the housing here, which is all held on by this bolt with a butterfly cap to it, which literally just spins off. And inside we'll see the paper filter element in here. Now, with this butterfly off, the whole plate is loose. And while I've got it apart, I'm going to give all of this a bit of a clean, just using some carburetor cleaner. And I've just cleaned up in here as well, exactly the same way. Replacement is a straight reversal of the dismantling. The filter sits over a little lip, and the housing sits, the top of the housing sits in a lip that's on the bottom plate. And then we can just pop our butterfly bolt back in again. And now you'll be glad to hear we can close the bonnet and move inside the car. Moving into the passenger footwell, I'm just going to pull back the carpet, and up here we have got a rubber bung, and I'm going to remove it for the first time ever. And lurking behind there is the steering rack lubrication nipple. Now, I have never done anything with this before. Whether the people I've entrusted to service my car have done it for me, that I do not know. Anyway, as you can see, if you can see in there, it is pretty crusty, so I'm gonna have to get in and give that a clean. And after a bit of scrubbing, we can actually see the nipple there now. Now, it's very much like the grease nipples on the suspension, but this one is going to be filled with oil. Now, most Morris Minors were supplied new with the correct tool to do this, but I've just bought this one from Frost on the recommendation of Blind Man Morris. So if you've not seen any of his videos, please do take a look. It's quite incredible. He's got a family of 4 minors, which he maintains through feel and memory alone. Doesn't click on like the grease nipple, but let's go for it anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't really know how much oil should go in there. Let's go with 10, because I'm not sure when it was done. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So with that done, we can now replace the rubber bung. The rubber itself actually looks quite new, so although it was really crusty, it must have been done. We can push the carpet back into place, and now we're going to move back underneath the car. With the drum off, we can make a visual inspection of the brake linings just to see how much is left on it. These look pretty okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is just blow any sort of brake dust out. Now, for me, I'm just using a aerosol can of air, which I'm going to use to blow out. But you know, anything that you've got to hand will be good. Brake dust, obviously, I'm going to put a mask on for this. While I've got the car in the air, I'm just going to check all the mounting points for the rear leaf springs as well. Nearly forgot. Finish off with a quick wash. So the other items is the gearbox and the rear differential oil changes as well. I did a video on that previously, which I'll put a link up here somewhere for. I think every couple of years, maybe every 3 years, I think it's probably enough. 24,000 miles. I don't think it says in the owner's manual how often that should actually be changed. But you know, there's less moving parts there. I don't think it needs changing as often as the engine oil. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the content. If you have, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe. But until next time, thanks for watching. Cheerio.